Manus indicated is our raw water line debt, and we were actually restricted from paying that down even more aggressively by prepayment penalties until just recently. Our recent financial plan that we adopted just weeks ago, I tasked my colleagues and city staff with finding ways to keep aggressively paying off that debt. It's important that we continue on that trajectory. I feel like I'm the debt slayer. We've cut it down 2/3, and we're on our way to getting it down to 0, and I hope that we do it quickly. There is a ballot question this June, again, to enable us to refinance debt quickly. And I encourage you to take a close look at that. If that passes, because refinancing is considered by bond counsel as new debt, we can't just, our ordinances say we've got to go to the voters if it's anything over $1 million in new debt. But to refinance, you have to act quickly. When interest rates go from, say 6% down to 4.5%, they don't stay there long, and you got to be able to act quickly. And so that's another way we can save money if that passes. As far as incurring additional debt, I say we don't do it except in exceptional circumstances. And it's always got to be a last resort, and it should only be if it's a top priority project that our citizens really want, and it's, and there's really no other feasible way to pay that. So we will talk about the pool in here in one of our other questions, but I think that debt is a useful tool sometimes, but it's not something, and I agree with these guys, it's not something you ever do without a lot of forethought, and we need to keep from paying down what we have.
Okay, this will be our final question because I would like to give everybody a chance to meet with you individually, because I'm sure that they all have their own questions they'd like to have answered. So, and it is about the aquatic center. What are your thoughts regarding the proposed new aquatic center? Is it necessary? Should it be expanded to feature more amenities than the existing facilities?
All right, I think almost everybody agrees that the existing facility is aging and inadequate in a lot of ways. Every year we spend tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars some years repairing it. We shut it down at certain times because there are code concerns, health code concerns, to get it back up to snuff. And it's not competition ready anymore because of the depth, because of the size of it. And so these considerations and many others, and it's just getting worse and worse. It's not going to get better. So we do need a new facility. And that's why we went through a year-long process to get citizen input, stakeholder input, swim community input, as many people as we could get input from on what do you want. Do you want a new facility? Where do you want it? What kinds of amenities do you want in it? And out of that process, the citizens helped us to choose a middle ground approach. The middle ground facility, the aquatics center, is not inexpensive. Original estimates just for construction were $27 million. When you add on to that overhead and profit and contingencies and other things like that, you're up in the $35 million range. And so we've gone out, we have a ballot question currently on the ballot to approve bonding up to $40 million. Again, the reason we go out to voters on a project of this magnitude is not for us to tell you how to vote, but for you to tell us how to vote on this issue. Unfortunately, our bond counsel tells us that these have to be supported and secured by general obligation bonds. That's the only real feasible way to do it. And general obligation bonds always have the T word associated with them, which is property taxes. Now, we don't necessarily have to raise property taxes, but we have to secure the debt by potentially being able to raise property taxes. And that's a difficult thing, because anytime somebody sees the T word, the chances of a bond passing, goes down substantially. When we first went out for this, I argued for 15 minutes in a council meeting that probably wasn't good timing, that we probably need more time to educate our citizens on this, that we don't want to politicize this in an election process. Mr. Harvey motioned to go out with it. So we went out with it. When we went out with it, I then said, okay, what can we do? Can we pledge somehow? Can we commit to our citizens that we'll look for other funds first before we have to raise property taxes? And just in our last council meeting on Tuesday, we did make that pledge, except for one person, Mr. McManus, who refused to make that pledge, that we would exhaust other possibilities first. And so again, we're not looking to tell you what you want to do on this. The citizens have already told us the scope they want on this. You need to tell us whether you want us to proceed with this. I have a track record of paying down debt. I can find ways to find money for this, but it's up to you to tell us whether you have skin in the game before we go forward. Thank you.
You know, there's one thing about Boulder City politics that has become very clear to me over the 60 years that I've been around this town is you folks don't trust us. And you're right, you shouldn't. It's not that I refuse to pledge to look for the other money, it's that I refuse to engage in a resolution that I believe is no more than trying to fool the population here. This project came in from the architects at $21 million. It then went to $27 million. It then went to $37 million. And those increases, in my view, were never explained other than, oh, well, there's contingencies, there's this, there's that. And then the question itself is framed to not be specific for the pool. It just says recreational facilities. Maybe there's yet another golf course in our future, who knows? When we get to a project like this, that pool is deteriorated. It needs to be replaced. When we get to a project like this, the first thing that should be done, in my view, is you go out, you find similar facilities, you find out what their budget was, and you establish a budget. You don't have an open checkbook and say, well, whatever anybody wants in this facility, we'll give it to them, and we'll just keep increasing the price. I don't think that's a very good way to go about it, especially in a small community like we have here. We need to be realistic when we do these things. So did I support a resolution saying, yeah, we're going to ask you for $40 million, but then we're going to tell you, no, we won't actually do that? No, I won't support a resolution like that. I think that this project has just really gone off the rails as far as what's practical, and that's too bad. We need a new pool. We need to be practical about how we do it, but I did support having this go to the ballot because I think it's important to hear from you. If you come back and tell us a resounding yes, fine. You're willing to take the risk of seeing your taxes be increased. If you come back with a resounding no, then we will understand, okay, it's time to get back to something that's realistic here. When we do consider these types of questions also, Mr. Harhay has introduced 2 resolutions at our last meeting, then withdrew one, then asked for the other to be moved to a point in the meeting where we had already discussed going ahead with the question. We need to be honest with you folks when we start talking about this amount of money. Thank you.
It's interesting that Mr. McManus wants to take both sides of the issue. As he mentioned, he did vote to put this on the ballot, as did I. At the last City Council meeting, I introduced a resolution to pull back the $40 million bond issue question, because I believed that everything was out of step. And I know there's criticism of politicizing this. If there's an issue that's worth politicizing, it's asking the voters for $40 million for a pool which design does not exist. My proposal was well explained in council. I don't believe I should redo it. I gained no traction. I'm kind of surprised that Mr. Schuman, who originally voted against the proposal, the ballot issue, did not second it. I'm very much surprised that Mr. McManus did not second it. But I'm willing to take that decision in stride. But I did go on record. I put my neck out on the line. I listened to people. And what I heard was, we don't trust you with an up to $40 million bond issue. We don't trust you. The pool design was presented to the council. Actually, 3 designs were, and we decided on the middle one. And I asked at that council meeting, how about a cafeteria plan? How about costing out these meeting rooms, the kitchen, the weight room, these other things that had nothing really to do with a swimming pool? We need a swimming pool to replace what we have for toddlers, for our swim team, for our recreational swimmers. These other things are nice. We could develop a plan where we tell the engineers and architects, give us a design that's flexible, that meets our basic needs, and cost it out. What we've done, we've plucked the number out of the sky, and as everyone here has indicated, somehow this grew to a $21 million plan, which may not necessarily be the true cost, because it had all those amenities built into it, up until the $40 million number. The issue is, it was out of sync. And again, I was perfectly willing to listen to the voters, listen to the community, and to bring it before council. I was not successful, but I'm happy I took that stand, and I take it again.
Thank you. Would you all like a minute to wrap up, or would you rather just...
Escape?
Yeah, yes. I think we'll go ahead and skip the formalities and give everybody an opportunity to meet individually with our candidates here. I want to thank them for coming and participating. Thank you all for coming as well and listening. If you have any specific questions that you would like addressed to our city council candidates, because I'm going to use some of these same ones, but we can also welcome some other ones, please send them to me by Friday. You can send them to my email at hsaylor@Boulder City Review, or just drop them by the office. We're on Nevada Way next to the coffee cup. And thank you again.
So far, all I got in my